So today I want to go over the best legendary weapon I've found so far in Borderlands 4, and this is the Tempting Linebacker, which is a Torg legendary shotgun, and the special effect is full coverage. Bouncing projectiles increase damage by 25% and damage radius by 35% per bounce. So this weapon always shoots 4 projectiles that bounce 5 separate times, and they're just little explosions that bounce along the ground. They do have splash radius, so they can't hurt you, and if you do a build more focused on splash damage and splash radius, you can definitely kill yourself quite a lot with this, so you have to be careful with it. But the damage of this weapon is absolutely ridiculous, and you'll see in the footage that especially with bigger bosses that are on the ground where you can hit more easily, the damage of this just stacks up pretty ridiculously to make this weapon incredibly strong for pretty much any point in the game. And also keep in mind, all the footage you're watching of me using this is not a build focused on splash damage or even weapon damage really. So if you had a build on any of the Vault Hunters completely focused around splash damage, around gun damage, this weapon's damage is going to get absolutely ridiculous. And to farm this weapon, you're going to go to Terminus Range and you're going to go to Cuspid Climb and you're going to farm the Sky Spanner Cratch boss. You're going to have to go through this big winding cave to get to it, but if you completed the main campaign, you will already have this unlocked because you have to do it for the main campaign. So make sure to put a waypoint on the Moxie's big Encore machine for this boss. It'll help you get through the cave much more easily. Once you get into the boss arena, it's just going to be a big flying bird that's pretty easy to DPS down. The main thing you really have to look out for is when the boss flies around the corners of the room and spawns all the exploding balloons that follow you around. But if you have a decent build, you should be able to DPS the boss down pretty quickly. And then you're just going to jump up to this side room, open the chest to get some extra loot. Then you'll be able to jump through the purple orb and go reset the boss with the Encore machine. So a few things to note with this weapon. First, you'll notice that it only has its legendary roll on it. It doesn't seem it can roll with any other manufacturer or any other manufacturer licensed parts on it. So you won't be getting like any mix of any other manufacturer parts on it to make some crazy combination, but it can actually roll different weapon parts still. It just seems to be rolling between different Torg weapon parts because the specific roll of mine that I've been using that you'll see in this video has a much bigger magazine than I've seen on some other rolls, and it seems to have a much lower damage. So mine is currently doing 911 times 4 for the damage. It shoots out 4 projectiles that all bounce 5 times, all increasing its damage with each bounce, but I've seen weapons with its base damage closer to like 1200 times 4, and the versions of the weapon I've seen with that higher damage also don't have a drum magazine like this one has. So it seems that the weapon can still have these random rolls. They're just all Torg parts, and more than likely you'll probably want to be just going for the highest base damage you can possibly get. I've seen some of these go up to like 3800 DPS instead of 3100 DPS like mine has. So keep that in mind. My version of this weapon seems to be the lowest damage roll, and I'm not using a gun damage or splash damage build in the footage you're seeing. So you could massively increase the damage of this weapon, and just how I'm using this weapon right now is still absolutely destroying pretty much any enemy I come across that's not flying, and pretty much any boss I come across, especially the really big bosses that can very easily be hit by every bounce. And also keep in mind when you're using this, the 5 bounces don't have super long distance between the bounces. The bounces will generally be in a somewhat small distance. So keep that in mind when you're trying to hit an enemy with more bounces. You're not trying to start the bounces super far away from an enemy. Now, like I mentioned, this is a Torg weapon with splash damage, so there are a few really easy things you can use to just make this weapon much better. Even if you're not using a build fully focused around this, you can use the enhancement effect of a Headringer, which is guns with Torg licensed parts gain 25% damage and 100% damage radius. That will massively increase the radius of these bouncing explosions, just making it much easier to hit bosses with. Then you can also use the Airstrike firmware, which increases your splash damage and splash radius specifically, so you could only get the first 2 parts, and that would massively improve the usability of this weapon and the damage it can deal. So I'll definitely recommend going and farming this weapon. It is incredibly strong at a baseline against everything besides flying enemies, and it is exceptionally good at really big bosses where all of the bounces are going to hit it, and you could absolutely make builds focused around this weapon that's just going to massively increase its overall power. But that's all I want to go over, so thanks for watching.